Hello, everybody. Welcome to the best session of the day. Yes, I said it, and no regrets given. Okay, guys. I am Ariana. I will be your moderator for today. These are amazing student athletes. I'll pass the mic so they are able to introduce themselves. So first, we'll start with Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley Lambert. I'm on the women's club hockey team here. I'm currently a junior, and I'm pursuing a double degree in chemical and biological engineering and anthropology.
Yes, double degree.
Hi, everyone. Jeez. I'm Sterling Parker. I'm on the women's volleyball team here. I am a junior, and I am majoring in psychology.
Hello, my name's Stephen Jones. I'm on the men's track and cross country teams here, and I'm one of the rare COVID sixth years. I am pursuing my master's in organizational leadership and innovation strategy currently, and already hold an undergrad in business information systems.
Okay, so before we start, we always do this ground rules thing in DEI. And so for the sake of our student athletes and for everybody watching, we just want to do the ground rules here because we recognize that this is a very vulnerable space and we're asking them to share their experiences and their stories with us. So first, I'd like to start by saying this is a dialogue and not a debate. We are all here to have a conversation and meet on a common ground rather than an argument. And then please practice active listening. Don't just listen to listen, but actually listen to learn. Utilize practicing I statements. Don't generalize for everybody else. This is your experience. And then this is a brave space. This is not a safe space. It's a step up from a safe space, okay? We are all brave here. We're asking y'all to be vulnerable, but call each other out. Call each other in. Don't call each other out. Call each other in. If you don't understand something, be like, hey, what do you mean? Can you expand on that? And then allow people to learn what you already know or what you've experienced. Don't just expect people to be like, oh, I've been through that, because not everybody has been through that. Okay. So first, we'll start off by letting them share their stories of how they got to CU and what made CU the special place to choose.
Well, I chose CU mainly because it was the perfect place of balance for me between being able to do the sport that I loved and pursue the academic program that I wanted. I chose club sports because I really wanted to balance out my college experience, and I always held academics as my first priority, and so I felt like CU was the perfect spot to get everything that I needed.
For me, I always knew that I wanted to continue playing sports at a competitive level, and I kind of started volleyball at a late age, so our coaching staff, shout out Evan who's here, our coaching staff really took an interest in me and really showed that they cared about me, and then coming on a visit here kind of set them apart from everyone else. I think there's resources here that aren't offered really anywhere else that I've been to, so I think that the opportunities we have here really set CU apart.
I transferred here at the beginning of the pandemic. I did 4 years previously at Mississippi State University and wanted to see where I could take myself to the next level. And thankfully, CU hosts one of the best distance programs in the nation. And so thankfully I had coaches Billy Nelson and Mark Wetmore reach out to me whenever I was in the transfer portal, and I was able to come to a school where we're kind of known for a very niche sport. And I'm thankful to be a part of a historic program such as CU. And so, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to circle back around, and I told them this before, but right here on this stage, we're going to practice building ourselves up, and we're going to give them their flowers. So I'm going to pass the mic back, and you tell everybody, like, your accomplishments and what you've done.
Okay. I am currently the president of my club. I've been in our student leadership for the past 2 years. So I guess for me that's a really big accomplishment because not many people get to have such a hands-on role in their sport and their season. And so that's been a really good focal point for me. And yeah.
Let's see, accomplishments. My freshman year, I was named to the All Pac-12 All Freshman team and an All Pac-12 honorable mention. My sophomore year, I was also an All Pac-12 honorable mention. Unfortunately, I had an injury last season, so I redshirted and didn't play. But now this season, I'm able to start practicing again, and I was named one of the captains of our team.
Previous to coming here, I am a U.S. Championship and Olympic Trials qualifier in the steeplechase, an event in outdoor track. And upon getting here and spending my time here, especially in the cross-country season, we were able to become the Pac-12 champions as a team this past fall in cross-country, and we're looking to carry that momentum into outdoors and hopefully qualify for the Olympic trials again as they come up this summer. Other than that, I was president of our diversity board at my previous school, which kind of compelled me to be on this stage today. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up most of my accomplishments.
All right, in the chat, throw some claps in there. The audience, let's hear it for their accomplishments. That took a lot of bravery. Okay, now let's get into the questions. As student athletes, you know there is both good biases that you guys have walking on campus, but there's also like the unseen mistreatment of student athletes or the misperceptions of student athletes. Please share any experiences you have faced being misjudged or treated unfairly based on your status as a student athlete.
I would say the biggest one that a lot of people hold is that we get a lot of kind of free passes for different stuff, like if we miss class or get exams rescheduled and things like that. Like, professors tend to be very accommodating, but I wouldn't say it's ever just write it off and we'll give you the 3 free points. You have to work it into your schedule another time, that a lot of people don't necessarily understand.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the biggest misconceptions is that what we do is easy. I'm a firm believer that it's really hard to understand the things we do unless you have been in our place before. I think student athletes are some of the hardest working individuals that I've ever met in my experience, and I think that we often get judged a lot that, you can just do whatever you want, you're an athlete, you get all these things. You don't get to complain about anything. You have all these resources for you. Like, how could your life be hard? So I think that for a lot of those people, they've never been student athletes. They've never been in our position. So it's really easy to judge what we do. But I think what we do is some of the hardest things that I've ever been through in my life.
I agree with what both of them have said as far as not understanding the experience from an experience standpoint from themselves. As well, I would like to add that I feel like oftentimes there are moments where the black student athlete perception is sometimes perpetrated to mean if you're a good black student athlete, sometimes if you're good, you get a pass and you get this and you get that because of your ability level, which would feed into a positive stereotype, I guess, but also perpetrates, this idea that student athletes are lazy or get these free passes and whatnot, where we're just trying to work as hard as we can, both in the classroom and in our own individual respective sports, alongside the resources that we're allocated here at CU. We utilize those to propel us in our sports and in our academics and whatnot, and use them as tools rather than excuses for how hard we have to work and whatnot.
So hopping right off of what Steven said, how do y'all manage, because a lot of times people be like, your identity or politics, they like to say, your politics shouldn't interfere with your sport, but a lot of times when they say politics, it's really your identity. So how does your identity intersect with you being an athlete and playing sports?
Yeah, I think that to your point, like there really can't be a separation. Like I know for me, I grew up in Seattle, which is a fairly small hockey community. So up until the point I was 16, I was one of the only girls walking around the rink. And that for me was a really big thing, not having a lot of role models and wanting to be that for a lot of the younger girls coming up. And so I think to a certain extent there is no separation, and you do the best that you can with your experience, and that's what everything you have is based off of.
Yeah, I agree. I can't remember a time where I didn't play a sport. I don't think there's been any breaks in my life where I didn't play some type of sport. So I think, especially when you grow up in that world, it's so hard to separate those identities. And I think I got a little bit of a taste of that being injured last season, and not being able to travel, not being able to practice was one of the hardest experiences of my life. And kind of realizing that, I need to kind of figure out who I am without volleyball. And I think that can be kind of a gut punch, especially as, you're a sixth year, we're juniors. Like, I think that's a very real thing that we have to deal with, and it's hard, and I think it's not talked about enough. I think we need to have more conversations around dealing with that kind of identity loss, because it's like you're losing a part of yourself. So I think we definitely need to start having those tough conversations sooner rather than later, especially as we get new athletes every year. And every year people are going through these kind of identity crises. So, yeah.
I think as well, kind of like what you said, how preparing in advance for if/when you get hurt or the sport lets you down, it's important to find a balance between diversifying your identity and having multiple outlets and having things that keep you engaged and get you excited and whatnot, but also realizing, as everybody on this stage has experienced, that sport plays such a huge role in our identities, not only in our community and here at CU and whatnot, but to ourselves and to our own personal identities. And so a lot of the times it's hard to try to see the light at the end of the tunnel, per se, when you get hurt or when things don't go your way. Maybe you don't get selected for a travel team. Maybe you don't get selected to, represent your team on a certain stage and whatnot. But identity in the sport is one of the biggest things to us, and sometimes juggling that on top of all the other responsibilities that we have, it gets to be a lot, naturally. And so trying to find a healthy balance of everything is something that I think every student athlete can relate to, and is trying to figure out for themselves. I'm a sixth year, and I feel I still haven't completely figured it out, It's a hard balance. It really is.
So Ashley, you talked a little bit, and I'm gonna go through all of y'all. So after you get done, you can pass the mic just back to me. So I'll ask Sterling a question and then Steven a question. You talked a little bit about how growing up you were the only girl or woman in the ring. How do you advocate for women in hockey?
Yeah, I kind of made it a point of myself after I got older, because I was kind of this peak age where I was the only one for a really long time, and I had one amazing role model from my hometown that was actually on the Olympic team that helped mentor me. And so as I got older, I made it an effort to coach the younger girls and really be visible to some of them. And so I've had some really great experiences with them, and hearing girls walk in and out of the rink like, wow, she's the girl on the only boys team, like I could do that too, has been really great for me. And so I think just trying to grow visibility for the sport and advocate for people that thought, maybe I can't play hockey or maybe I can't do this, and be like, no, you can. It's just a matter of putting your mind to it.
I like that. I like that. Sterling, you talked a little bit about identity and being hurt and how that affects kind of your mental health and your mental being. How do you practice self-care, and who do you go reach out to when you're feeling, down and injured or something?
Yeah, so we're lucky here that at CU mental health is a really big priority. So during that time especially, I was in with PHP once or twice a week just to try and figure out myself and kind of how to cope with it. I have a great staff. I have great teammates who I would also talk to, and we had a grad transfer last season who had the same injury as me before she got there, so I reached out a lot to her just about her process, and even my dad, he was injured in college too, and just leaning on those people that have had those shared experiences and kind of getting their take on how they dealt with it has been really helpful for me.
And thank you. I got a mic so you can pass that one. And thank you for bringing up the fact that, being hurt too it's being an athlete and being an athlete your whole life, the loss of identity that happens. And it doesn't just happen when you're hurt. Like, one day your sport is going to end, so you are going to have to deal with that. So I'm happy you brought that up and brought that to everybody's attention, that it does need to be more talked about and more visible. So thank you for that. Stephen, my question is to you. I've actually heard your podcast about being a Black distance runner, but can you talk about how being, one of the only people that look like you on your team and that experience and how you deal with that?
Yeah, so historically, cross-country / distance running in general is a predominantly white sport. And especially growing up, I'm originally from Troy, Ohio, and there were not, as you said, there were not a lot of people that looked like me that were participating in the sport. Thankfully, I have always been fairly good at what I do, and so that garners a lot of attention, both from a performance standpoint, but also, as we were saying, as I didn't have a lot of people that looked like me, that gained a lot of attention too. And so trying to find a role model or like a mold to fit, per se, as I was growing up was something that I had to find for myself. I believe that my sport in particular can really bring people together because it is one of the simplest things you can do. The act of running, the act of going on a run with people that you enjoy is a very communal thing, and that feeling is something that I've always felt very strongly about in my sport. And so that's something that I've tried to garner in my own relationships with my teammates, fans, people in the community in Boulder that want to know more about what I do, and especially from the perspective of somebody who doesn't look like the majority of the population within my sport. I get a lot of questions, and I get a lot of acknowledgement for that. So I feel like it's a hard balance to try to represent a community within another community and still have my own sense of full identity in that.
How are you balancing all that pressure?
Me personally, I feel like I have to really weigh how much time I'm putting into sport, school, extracurriculars. I find other hobbies that keep me balanced or centered outside of sports, so that kind of like what we said earlier, if one goes awry, and like I got hurt last year as well. I unfortunately broke my sacrum, so I was out for a while. And in that moment, having to rely on and lean on other extracurriculars, things that I enjoy, people that I actively invest my time and energy into, really helped get me through that. Yeah.
So having a support system be able to pour back into your cup.
Precisely.
Okay, cool. Okay, so the theme of this year's summit is Lead Like a Champion, Paving the Way for an Equitable Playing Field. You kind of already touched on this, but I know there's more you can go and more in depth you can go. So from your experiences, how would you describe your journey in sport as it relates to access and equity?
You and me?
You can pass to whoever wants to start.
Go for it.
Oh, okay. I think I just kind of like Steven said, volleyball isn't a very diverse sport. I grew up in California in the Bay Area, so I'm already in an area that's very diverse. I think coming here was a little bit of a culture shock just because, Colorado is a very predominantly white place. And so for me, that was a little bit of a, oh my God, like, this is very new to me. This is a new place. This is a new environment. There's not a lot of people that look like me, and I think especially here, like the athletic department is the most diverse place. So I think it's kind of hard to be out in the community and people kind of look at me and they're like, oh, she has to be an athlete. Like, there's no way she would come here if she wasn't playing a sport. Like, there's just no way. And so I think kind of having that is a little hard to deal with. And I think also, as far as equity, we practice in the same facilities as men's basketball. And when you have a high earning sport sharing the same place as you can kind of see the different kind of accessibility that they get versus us. I think there's been times where like we're practicing in the main gym and men's basketball comes in and we kind of have to move because men's basketball needs that court. Or like even as simple as like in the weight room, men's basketball is allowed to take off their shirts when they work out, but we can't. So it's a very, you can kind of see it in a lot of things, but I think for me, as far as access goes, I have a lot of access in the athletic department. I feel very isolated when I'm outside of athletics. So it's hard being black in a predominantly white place. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just kind of something, unfortunately, that we just have to deal with and kind of navigate on our own because there's not a lot of people outside of the athletic department that you can go to and be like, hey, like, how are you dealing with this? How do you live in this type of environment? So I think, I'm lucky that I have a lot of people within the athletic department that I can lean on and I can go to for that advice and for that support. But outside of it, it's very difficult to navigate.
Yeah, I'm happy you highlighted that. We actually just had a Hear or Heard on a Black student athlete experience, and we talked about how being Black in Boulder and being Black in Colorado, you kind of feel like, in Black culture, you've seen these shows, and they talk about Colorado, and they talk about how being a Black person there is like your percentage. You are like less than 1%. You don't see very many people that look like you. So I'm happy you brought that to people's attention because I feel like a lot of times people don't really realize that, and it's like when you see a Black person, you kind of give them a little nod, like, I see you. So I'm happy you brought that up.
I think I touched on it earlier. Like, I know for our team specifically, we tried to do a lot with some of the Colorado youth teams. I know in terms of access, being a club sport is typically a lot different than being a D1 sport, just because we're entirely student run and student funded, and we fundraise for our entire season, which can be a lot, especially on all of the girls, on top of practice and school and commitments like that. And so access is definitely something that we talk about a lot as a team. For me, being in a leadership position, I've had a really great experience with some of the administration here at CU to try and broaden our access and equal out some of like the fundraising opportunities, and even compared to some of the men's club sports, like what we get and the support that we get comparatively. So I think it's always hard because we are a club sport, so it's not like we are bringing in dollars for the school, and so some of that support can be limited. But I think we try our best with what we have.
And just so everybody's aware, this is Ashley is our first student athlete that is a club sport representative. So we just want to give you a shout out for being up here and sharing your story, because we already know, girl, you doing my job and you doing your job. So I just want to give it up for Ashley, y'all.
I want to reflect what you both said as far as access goes. I feel very, as you said, especially that this is probably the most diverse place in Boulder / Colorado in general that you interact with. I've felt very welcomed and very supported in my short stint here so far. But also, as you said, the minute that I end up walking out the doors, or especially in my case, when I leave for practice or go for a run, which can take me anywhere in Boulder, essentially, that sense of security leaves a little bit. Thankfully, access-wise, both from a societal standpoint and a geographical location standpoint, societally, like I said, here at CU, feel very welcomed. Access-wise to the geographical location, obviously, Colorado and Boulder is beautiful. I love being able to do what I get to do here specifically. Running in the mountains is a par none experience. But in a community where things are predominantly white, there are times, like, for example, last summer at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement and the protests going on with that, there were times where I would be running throughout the community or just simply existing, and I would either be getting very strange looks or would be treated less than equitably on some trails and whatnot, as I'm simply just, trying to get a run in, trying to do what I love. And so I think in moments like that, it makes me wonder about other people's mindsets and perceptions of me and how I reflect outwards towards people. And there is a big pressure that I'm sure you feel as well to represent your community within the community that you're in here. And that pressure can get to be a lot at times.
And I just want to let you know, you do not have to put on the pressure of our whole community on your body. You know what I'm saying? Like, Black people are so many people that one person should not be the spokesperson for the whole community. So I don't want you to feel that pressure anymore. Like, take that pressure off your back, man. Take it off your back. Give it to me. I'll take some of your pressure off.
We can share it.
We can share it. My next question is, what could the leadership here at CU community do better to improve the student-athlete experience? And you can take this from your utopian perspective of saying, like, without anything that's putting on to the situation, like, I want to change this big thing. Like, you don't have to think of it like the logistics about it.
I know. I'm a little stumped on this one. I think acknowledging that we're all people. We all want to be treated the same. We all want the same things. But yet that experience looks different for everybody, whether we like to acknowledge it or not, is a big talking point. And so kind of just keeping that conversation open and realizing that, at the end of the day, we all want to be respected and treated well, is a huge thing or a huge topic of conversation, I should say.
I would say, this is more for like people not in the athletic department, I think treating each sport and understanding that each sport is hard in its own right, and it takes a lot for people to be able to be competitive in their sport, and we go through a lot as student athletes. And I also think something that I've noticed is that outside of the athletic department, I think being an athlete, you get judged based on your proximity to football and men's basketball. And I think we don't get enough credit if you're not one of those sports. And I think especially if you're not in the athletic department, a lot of people, they ask if I'm an athlete, and they're like, oh, do you get to like hang out with the football team? Do you like know so-and-so? Do you know this person on the basketball team? Are you friends with this person? Could you like give me their number? And so it's just like our value is based on how close we are to football and basketball, which is frustrating because it feels like that's dismissing how hard we work in our respective sports and how much time and effort we're putting in to try and be as competitive as we can be.
Yeah, I would agree with both of you. I mean, I think from my perspective as a club athlete, like we could always use more support from the university, because I know like our team fronts a lot. But I think just in general, like the exposure and some of the conversations about what really goes into our experience, and especially in club athletics, because there are so many clubs, understanding from the university perspective, like how hockey is so different than soccer versus baseball versus whatever sport, and how the needs change is really important, and something that I feel is sometimes lost in the cracks when I talk to administration. And so I think some of those nuances can be really important and are sometimes overlooked.
So we've talked a little bit about what challenges you guys face as student athletes, but can we talk a bit about like what privileges come with your status of being a student athlete? Steven nodded his head, so you can pass the mic down. I'm gonna take that as he want to start first.
Well, I'm very aware of the fact that, especially here, we have so much access to mental health resources. We've got the fueling that we do here, the dining halls and whatnot, do an incredible job here of keeping us going in that regard. Facilities here are very nice. The room that we're in right now is an incredibly nice facility. I have arguably the greatest trainer in the NCAA right now, in just like 10 steps that way. Everything is located very close together. Just things like that that you may not think about in your day-to-day that you may take for granted. Whenever I looked at coming here, I noticed all those things because I had previous experience at another school that was also fortunately had a lot of great perks to it as well. But CU really has perfected a lot of those aspects that student athletes look for. And so I'm always very aware of the benefit and privilege that comes with having access to something and a system that supportive. I've really enjoyed my time here.
I think a big privilege that I don't really realize is how many networking opportunities and opportunities like outside of sport we have. I mean, E has a job. Like she doesn't run here anymore, and she works here. So even Julia, I see you work here. So just those opportunities. I mean, I was injured last season, and I got to commentate on the Pac-12 network, and I don't even know how I really got that opportunity. Our SID came up to me and was like, would you be interested in like commentating one of your games? And I was like, what? Like, okay. And I did it and I loved it. And now I have Thad, who's one of the commentators on the Pac-12 network, as someone I can network with and in the future possibly work with him to get a job in the industry. So those opportunities and like Alston money, what? Like we're one of 2 Pac-12 schools, I think, that have that opportunity given to not just scholarship athletes, but all the athletes here, and gold card money that everyone gets, like that's insane. So yeah, shout out to us.
I have a little bit of a different take. I would say one of the biggest privileges that I've had as a student athlete in terms of like the college experience is certainly coming in and having just like a built-in family with my team. And I mean, my freshman year, like having some of our seniors, Lexi's one of them right here, that was able to help me and guide me and really be like, oh, like this is a great building to study in on campus, or you should take this professor for Chem 101, and stuff like that. And I think that so often is overlooked, especially for college freshmen coming in. Like college is scary when you come in, you're all on your own. A lot of people come from their houses with their parents or wherever you were where you had a really large support system, and you come into some land you've never heard of or doing whatever, and you're just on your own. And I think that team support system right from the get-go is really important. And I also think, like, on the flip side of sometimes being a burden, having so much access to some of the administrators and some of the high-level people on campus, we have that opportunity if we see something to voice it and say, hey, like this could really be done better in a way if you did it this way. Whereas like I know some of my friends who aren't as involved on campus may never have those opportunities with some of those people that actually have positions to make a change on campus.
I like that what you said. Going back to what Sterling said, I do want to, I was a student athlete here, so I do want to shout out our athletic director who was in the first session, and I do say that he does a very good job at reaching out to our student athletes and building this pipeline into sports, you know, like allowing our student athletes to have internships in a department, or like me, becoming a full-time role here. So thank you, Rick. But going back to what you guys said, and especially you two down on the end, I'm gonna challenge y'all because I know sometimes being in this bubble of athletics, everything is right here. So we do have that luxury of just being right here. But how do y'all connect back to the community?
I always say my favorite part of being a student athlete is when we do camps over the summer. I get to work with little kids from like ages 7 to 17, and being able to see the same faces over and over again, and they come to our games, and having girls that know my name. And I had a girl, I was injured, and with NIL stuff, we can sell jerseys with numbers on them, and she was wearing my number and was so excited to meet me. So just kind of having that experience, like, wow, like I'm a role model to so many kids, and just having that realization is, I'm so grateful for that, to be able to work with so many kids in the community, to be able to teach them about sports, and especially women and little girls, teaching them that like it's cool to be strong and it's cool to be powerful, and it's a really rewarding experience for me to be able to kind of give back in that way.
That's really tight. Kind of reflecting what you said, in a lot of my experiences, and especially it's funny that you brought up that podcast / video that I ended up doing. I did a video, I was asked to do a video about a year ago on my experience as a black endurance athlete. As I said previously, it's a very predominantly white sport / community. And I had so many people, both black, white, all races, reach out to me after they saw that video, both thanking me for my perspective and for giving voice to a lot of their shared experiences as well. And being in Boulder has allowed me to both have that platform and also connect with the endurance community here. It's not a super well-known fact, but Boulder is kind of a mecca for endurance sports and whatnot, training up here at altitude. And so the running, cycling, triathlete community here in Boulder is very prominent. And so whenever I'm out running by myself or with my team and whatnot, people see the CU logo and see us pursuing bettering ourselves, and will sometimes stop us as a group or me just on my own, and want to ask questions or engage and really learn more about us and how much we train and just us in general. And so I find through my sport, that's how I connect to the community the most, knowing that this is a very niche community. Sports allowed me to connect to Boulder that way.
And Ashley, how do you connect to the community?
I think we do a lot of summer camps as well, which is always really great to see some of the girls. And I get a lot of questions because club hockey is one of the fastest growing divisions in women's hockey. And so I've had a lot of people that I knew from my hometown or just from whoever reach out to me and be like, oh, like, how did you get involved, and how, like, what are the steps and what do I need to do? And so that's been a really big way for me to give back. And then also just in terms of being in student leadership on campus, I've gotten to participate in some of the student philanthropy months and talk with some of the other student leadership on campus and really learn other people's experiences and how we can come together even though we may not have the most common ground between, say, hockey and robotics, but we can still do things for campus that make everyone have a better experience.
And to wrap it up, we've talked a little bit about how sport and social justice kind of intertwine, but how has your sport influenced your view of social justice issues in the world? Or how to use your platform?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think, like we were saying earlier, a lot of times identity and sport really can't be separated. I know in the last couple of years, especially women's hockey in the Olympics and with some of the World Juniors and things like that has gotten a lot of attention since it was such a predominantly male sport for so long. We're still fighting for some of those things and for people to care about women's hockey and athletics. I mean, a lot of people, like we were talking about, hockey has to end at some point, and there's not really a professional league for women to go into. And so I think just advocating for as many opportunities and experiences as we can get as athletes is the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree with what Ashley said. I think it is so hard to separate sport and who you are. And so when I see things in the news about professional athletes being called out of that whole shut up and dribble argument, or you need to just focus on playing your sport, you shouldn't have opinions on this, I think being an athlete at this level has really helped me understand that, like, it's so hard to separate the two. And also when you have that big of a platform, it almost feels like your job to be outspoken on issues that you care about. And when you kind of get shot down, I think that almost lights a fire under you to work even harder and to be even more outspoken on issues that matter to you. I know myself, like, I'm a huge advocate for the Black Lives Matter movement, all things having to do with intersections of race and sport, and I think that it's a really big issue, and it's something that, again, isn't talked about enough. And I really do feel for those professional athletes who have to deal with that kind of hate about just being able to speak up for what you believe in and what you think is right, and then being shot down for that just seems kind of outrageous to me.
And I do want to give Sterling her flowers because she's not, she won't give it to herself. But Sterling is actually on our C United staff council as a student athlete rep, and she's one of our leaders in the student athlete C United. And C United started as a social justice and a race task force. So, she's paving the way and using her platform there too.
Thank you.
I think sport has always been a connector and a nexus between all people. I think it's impossible, and also just there shouldn't be a separation of sport and identity and people, or how people view themselves and whatnot. It is an all-encompassing thing. And I think especially when it comes to social justice of any form, as long as things are viewed from the perspective of conversation rather than confrontation, sport can be used to really connect people and bring people together. And so I've always been an advocate for, you shouldn't have to sugarcoat how you feel or how you are perceived and whatnot. And so I truly believe that sport is the way that we can all come together.
Yeah, and sport is such a unifying experience. Like, we all go there and it's one of those places where we can all be on the same side. So let's have these conversations. Let's use our platform. So I love that. As we wrap up, I just want to shout you guys out. Let's tell everybody what y'all got going on or what's coming up so they can support you guys. You all.
What, just as far as next steps in life? Or what are we talking here?
I mean, I know season is in for track, so you can talk about that a little bit. Or next in life. Shoot, we gonna do it all. We can do it all.
I'm going into my final season of everything right now, which is a little bit daunting, but I'm very excited to see how well it goes. And as I alluded to previously, looking to make the Olympic trials again for my event. So hopefully I can pull that off.
I'm recovered from my injury, so I get to start practicing again and start taking some swings. I got shoulder surgery, which is a huge part of volleyball. I can't swing if I don't have a shoulder. So being able to practice again is super exciting for me, and we have some spring games coming up in March and April, so I'll get to be on the court again, which is really exciting.
We actually leave for our regional tournament tomorrow, where if we win, we'll go on to our national tournament in St. Louis in March. So that's the next kind of big thing coming up for that. We're getting towards the end of our season, and I mean, I guess the only other things we do is we run a lot of spring camps or fundraisers. So if you know any girls that are interested in coming to try hockey, we would love to teach them how to skate.
Yay, thank you guys so much for your time. I think we're wrapping up. And I do want to just call myself out. I keep saying guys, and that's not inclusive. And I'm a DEI associate, so I'm trying to call myself in, work with me, you all, working on being better at that part. But thank you all so much for your time. Whew, caught myself there. Thank you all so much for your time.